November the 10th, 2019. Guys, there's been information that came out over the last couple of days, and I'd like to take a few minutes and let's talk about it. I'd like to hear your comments or read your comments below. We know that the Democrats, under pressure, are preparing to take this impeachment hearing more public. But what they've done, and I guess it's okay to talk about this on social media, because the Democrats released some of the transcripts that's been going on in the underground bunker that Adam Schiff has been running. And the transcripts talk about different things, but I want to go in and talk about one that I think is important because it has to do with Vindman. He's part of the National Security Council now and has ties with Ukraine, was one of Adam Schiff's main witnesses. Well, Senator Ratcliffe, the Republican, got to ask him questions. Again, it was at that time classified, but they've released some, I guess, again, under pressure, the same reason they're going to try to go public with this. Now, I don't think they're going to get very far at all. And we're seeing indications. We saw the video I put up the other night, just very short, with President Trump saying that he had caught the deep state. He had caught them all. And if that pans out to be the case, then it puts a greater understanding into being patient. Because if you think about it, the deep state, what does that mean? It means it goes layer after layer, and you have to unpeel layer after layer. But when he said, I have caught them all, we have seen many layers peel back. And now we've gotten to the point to where, guys, rhinos are being identified. They're being called out. And we're starting to understand more about that. But again, I want to go back to some of the transcripts that were released. And it has to do with Ratcliffe and Vindman, the NSA guy. Remember, he appeared in full uniform, if I'm not mistaken. So here goes. I want to read some of this, and I think this is why the Democrats are in a panic situation right now, and they're just kind of like trying to delay everything till they figure out what to do, because what they have tried is not working at all. It's backfired almost every time. From the conservative treehouse, the report is on the release and has been highlighted of some interesting pieces from the testimony. Apparently, in its opening remarks, young Vindman stated that he believed the president demanded, in quotations, something from the Ukrainians. Representative Ratcliffe destroyed him on this assertion. On page 5, and this is, again, Ratcliffe, he says, I guess that starts the election call, and I'm going to ask you about the last paragraph that starts. I was concerned by this call, but before I do, did you write the statement? And again, this is Ratcliffe asking Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Vindman says, yes, I wrote it. Ratcliffe says, okay, so these are your words? Vindman says, yes. Ratcliffe asking, is there anything about these words you want to change? Vindman says, no. Ratcliffe, okay, so in here, you in the paragraph before you reference that, the transcript is in the public record. We all are aware of what was said. In other words, remember, Trump released that transcript, and now he's announced today he's going to release the second transcript. But going back to the public record, again, of that transcript, Ratcliffe asked him, so in here, in the paragraph before, you referenced that the transcript is in the public record. We are all aware of what was said. I was concerned by the call. I do not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen. And so the word demand was thrown in there. Remember, he was coached. And then Ratcliffe says, you said I don't think it was proper. You didn't say it was not proper. Were you uncertain? Vindman says, I was not uncertain. And so Ratcliffe remember, he already knows the answer to these questions. That's how this works. All right. Again, Ratcliffe, he says, then do you want to change your statement to say that it was not proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen? Now, at this point in the transcript, Ratcliffe challenges Vindman to find in the president's transcript, which is all of this is about, of the call where the president demanded, again, in parentheses, anything from the Ukrainian president. Mr. Ratcliffe, in his words, okay, so again, clear to you, but you cannot point to me a specific place in the July 25th phone call that justifies the use of the word demand. So Colonel Vindman, or Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, replied, he says, if you give me a minute, Congressman, I will just, Mr. Ratcliffe says, take as long as you want. Ratcliffe knew that nowhere in Trump's transcript was the word demand or the implication of the word demand that Ukraine do something. And in this case, they're implying investigate a U.S. citizen. And so, again, Mr. Ratcliffe says, take as long as you want. And Vindman replies, and I'll take a look and see if I can find something. What? Again, Mr. Ratcliffe says, what's the time? He's asking he's asking Shift, and I think one of the other guys there that are running this thing, he says, I just want to reflect how long the witness is looking for words to justify demand, and the record reflects that. In other words, he's making note of it. The guy's still looking. What's the time? All right, I'm going to let the record reflect, in Ratcliffe, that I've given the witness several minutes to look for words that justify the use of the word demand. Guys, can you say coached by the Shift Committee? Have you found anything at this point? Lieutenant Colonel Vindman replies, I think so, Mr. Ratcliffe. Okay, what is it? In the next section, when they're talking, the Vindman can't find anything, guys, in the transcript to justify the word that he was coached into saying or volunteered into saying, demanding, or the word demand that our president said. It was all that Vindman perceived and not based on the laws or other interpretations of the meeting. Vindman had concerns about the president's policy. Now, this is a lieutenant colonel who's controlling the narrative between the U.S. and Ukraine to protect we know who. But, guys, he suggested that Ukrainians ignore Trump. Now, what happened after this was released is he's now being taken out of the NSA in the headlines today. Now, they're going to keep him employed so far, at least now, and move him over to another department. But anyway, Ratcliffe says, so you get to an important point here because you're going to say, obviously, that you were concerned, and as a result of that, you reported your concerns to the National Security Council's lead counsel, Mr. Eisenberg, correct? Vindman replied, correct. Ratcliffe replies, okay. And you just said you reported it because you thought there was something wrong. And I'm trying to find out if you were reporting it because you thought there was something wrong with respect to policy, or there was something wrong with respect to the law. And what I understand you to say is that you weren't certain that there was anything improper with respect to the law, but you had concerns about U.S. policy. And is this a fair characterization? Mr. Ratcliffe replied, so you, a week following you listening in on a phone call with the President of the U.S. making a request of the Ukrainian government to assist in an ongoing investigations, a member of his National Security Council, he's talking about Vindman, you told Ukrainian officials to do just the opposite and to ignore his request and stay out of U.S. politics. Is that what we're to understand from your testimony today. Mr. Vindman replied, and this is where Swalwell and all start getting in there and stopping this thing and kind of ending it because it's getting out of control. But Vindman replies, "That's an interesting characterization, Congressman. I was certainly not going against the orders of my commander-in-chief. Oh, of course not. What I was suggesting is that very superficial or at the basic level, staying out of U.S. domestic politics is not a good idea. Congressman, I apologize. Do you think this is?" And Ratcliffe interrupted, "Let me ask the questions." Vindman said, "Congressman, do you think this is a good idea to get involved?" Mr. Swalwell interrupts, says, "Let him finish." Now, Mr. Ratcliffe at this point has about had it. He says, he has a lawyer here, President Swalwell, and he's referring to Swalwell's failed bid as a presidential candidate. He got kicked out right off the bat. Vindman says, "How could it possibly be a good idea? It's not if you're protecting part of the deep state, in this case, the vice president and his son and the people that dealt with that." Then Quigley interrupts, presiding. "Hold on, gentlemen. Gentlemen, let the witness finish answering this question." Vindman pops in and he says, "Congressman, how could it possibly be a good idea to cancel at my level? I'm certainly not the President of the U.S. "No, you're not. The President of the U.S. has the authority to do this. I guess. I don't know." He doesn't know, but now he's the chief witness. One of them. The other one you can't name. But it's everywhere. "The President of the U.S. has the authority to do this. I guess. I don't know. I didn't think it was right." But so you're leading an impeachment investigation as one of the chief witnesses, but you didn't think it was right. Why didn't you think it was right? What is your agenda, Mr. Vindman? And guys, this is where at times you'll see something and you'll call it out for what you see it as. You'll call it and you'll lay it right down on the line, regardless of who it is and what side they're on. That's the way I am. And it's happened even with military people like Mr. Vindman. I have a lot of friends in the military, both on YouTube and in my family. But to think that all military people, even though they have a chest full of medals, would not lead you astray, then you better remember who Benedict Arnold was and no name. Do you understand? Means nothing. It means a lot to the Patriots, but it does not mean that these people stay loyal. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just because they have this chest full of medals does not make them true patriots. They could be part of this bunch. Please wake up. He said, "But as a director of the National Security Council," again Vindman, "would certainly not counsel my counterpart to somehow involve themselves in U.S. domestic policies. Oh, no, we may expose the Bidens, which would lead to Obama." You could take that as, I guess you could twist it into some sort of specific thing. Mr. Ratcliffe replied and cut him off, said, "I'm not trying to twist anything." Now, it's gotten overheated. You can tell by the transcript, and this is where the Democrats really start jumping in there to cut Ratcliffe off because he's down at the bottom of the well. Ratcliffe replies, "All right, Colonel Vindman, on July 25th, 2019, the President of the United States asked for the assistance of the Ukraine in connection with a criminal investigation or investigations. Your testimony a few minutes ago was that during the week of July 31st, following that call, you advised Ukrainian officials to stay out of U.S. politics. Is that correct? I want an answer." He gets cut off. Mr. Volkov, "We've already been down this road." Ratcliffe replies, "No, you haven't." Volkov, "I object." Mr. Quigley, "Just 1 second. Mr. Cicilline, may I raise a point of inquiry or a point of order?" Mr. Quigley, "Hold that for a second, so I believe you've asked a question in terms of it being criminal. And I'm not sure that there was ever anywhere in the president's comments that he said, I'm asking you to help in a criminal investigation. The rest of the question has been asked and answered, and the time is up. They shut it down at that point. But the Dems guys they're pulling out all stops, and they really never had any to start with. They're trying everything they can to protect a certain group of people. And the entire time, while it was a Russian narrative, this and that, it was trying to keep the real information on the down low by distracting everyone. When the key, the brick, the last straw that opened it was Ukraine the entire time, and now that's been opened. So, guys, everyone, prep, pray, keep your heads up, and be safe, because things could get very interesting very quick. It's a heads up. Be safe.